YouTube comments from a video titled Where You Actually Want to Be When WW3 Starts. Part 2.
At Mysticaltager 2009 wrote,
This all sounds good, but how many people would actually be able to move to any of these places, even if they would be the safest? Only the rich, well-connected or lucky would be able to get to these places in time.
At the Immortal Remas wrote,
We should try and make sure it should never be a question of when, because to not sugarcoat it, a third world war would be the end of the world, being the first full-on nuclear conflict that would approximately last 72 minutes, also being the shortest global conflict in history, as it won't be fought with conscripted soldiers, but by people pushing buttons on a console, most likely in a safe bunker, while the rest of us die either immediately in the blasts or slowly and painfully suffering a very slow death in nuclear winter. In the aftermath.
At Andrew Vogler 7646 wrote,
The Appalachians aren't as great as he describes. 1. The water in the coal fields is very high in heavy metals and sulfurous in places due to heavy mining. Average life expectancy before city water was 60 years old and cancer rates were off the charts. Also, the population is a lot higher than you may expect. On the other hand, medical care isn't as lacking as he makes out. There are numerous hospitals, just like in cities, probably far more than the plains. The population density is much higher. Then again, there are numerous old abandoned mines you could claim and hole up inside for security. You would just need to figure out a water filtration method.
At B1 Chabel 3 at 3R wrote,
Please, if an alien is reading this, finally, show yourselves so that people who don't accept this can leave the planet. This whole system is based solely on oppression. I don't know if things are better elsewhere, but they can't get much worse.
Polly Kings wrote,
Great. More immigration coming into Chile. A curious and frightening fact about this is that years ago, we already had Rockefeller looking at land here in southern Chile, and countless billionaires and Hollywood stars looking for properties in the south. So what this video says makes sense if you read between the lines. You can come, but come to adapt to us and don't expect us to adapt to you. Don't be idiots.
At Dump City Clips wrote,
Hear that, New Zealand? You can be as belligerent and drunk as you want, and nobody is gonna stop you. I dare you to start colonizing the islands across the Pacific and declare it the largest nation on Earth, claiming the ocean between its islands, like Canada does.
And Not Sparks wrote,
WW3 would be measured in hours, not days or years. In the event that happens, there is really nowhere safe enough and self-reliant enough to escape the effects.
Jergsbane wrote,
Tungsten carbide rod from space targeted on the Himalayas would throw enough material to greatly destabilize China and Russia almost at the same time, and a couple tactile nukes that could be quickly delivered would make quick work if things really started to go full-on war with no quarter. Not to mention some of the more interesting weapons that can debilitate them.
Capital Pixelato wrote,
Every smart person is living in Tenerife right now. I've been just lucky, I guess. I was born here. Nice video, but it's better to keep it as a secret.
At KittyStar 4874 wrote,
Trump will be gone soon, and everything will be fine. And if there was a World War III, nobody would be using nukes. The world has already learned that lesson. If you use a nuke, you're attacking yourself and the whole planet. Nobody is going to do that. It also doesn't make sense, because it irradiates the land you are trying to take and destroys the infrastructure.
As Steve Spence CC4PP wrote,
The narrator evidently has never read the Bible. The safest place to be is in heaven. There will be a rapture of all real born-again believers shortly before WW3 begins, and all anyone must do is Romans 10:9-13. Christians will be taken off of the earth shortly before the mayhem begins. The rapture is Revelation 4. 1 John sees a door opened in heaven in the future, and the mayhem begins in Revelation 6. 1 When the Antichrist is revealed, becomes the world's dictator and proclaims himself to be Jesus Christ. Maranatha, Lord Jesus.
A Dark Helixia wrote,
The best place would be somewhere to the north of Scotland. Come nuclear winter or man-made bubonic plague, the scenery and the people will remain largely unchanged from the 15th century.
At Mark Poidvin 5382 wrote,
A full-scale nuclear exchange is unlikely. Russia has no chance of taking Western Europe, or Eastern for that matter. Since the initial invasion, when they caught Ukraine by surprise, they've advanced about 20 km. They can't really use nukes, because Europe doesn't have as many, but it doesn't take that many. And if it broke out between China and the United States, because of the events of the past 10 years, I can tell you that as a Canadian, and I am sure Europeans feel the same way, we would tell the Americans good luck and let us know how it turns out. Canada would use that time while the war is going on, or they're rebuilding or rearming, to build a few dozen nukes. Another major problem with a war these days is ammunition. It takes forever to make and cost a fortune. I really think the United States has stabbed itself in the foot. And a lot of these bases they have around the world will suddenly develop a lot of potholes as countries did not want to get involved, but didn't want to say so.
At Visual Variant wrote,
This is all assuming everything. Which when you start assuming, by the time you end the assumption, you are no better than when you started. Since you built entirely on the initial assumption.
At Patrick William Cockayne 5639 wrote,
South Africa is antagonizing Trump's USA. Right-wing SA diehards are pushing a story to the US about how there's a white genocide in SA. There isn't, but the truth is no longer a consideration for the current US administration. Plus, we took Israel to the ISJ over the genocide in Gaza, and as a BRICS founder, we're much too close to China and Russia for the Americans' liking. That said, if we're all going to be wiped out in a world war, South Africa is a truly extraordinary place for as long as it lasts, so I'm staying put whatever.
Chris BD4LH wrote,
Hello, Erica has 0 allies left. The world versus America will be World War III. Australia will not be safe whilst line gaps remains. Australia will not support America, nor will NZ or UK. Australia will see end Australia to no end. Bottom line is America will be the enemy of every country, full stop.
A Ghetto de Chapa 87 wrote,
Not in America, because Canada is gathering up the boys. We just talked to Brazil, German Chancellor, France, Spain, Britain, and the rest of NATO. Invade from the north and south, east and west. B** MBS over DC.
At Jodier 9840 wrote,
After seeing how fast we kidnapped the dictator of Argentina, would you like to revisit the total BS you spewed in this video? It make you look like a complete moron.
As Supersuka 1 wrote,
If you mentioned the Azores, you should have mentioned Madeira. Many of the positives of the Azores, concentrated on one island, Porto Santo, wouldn't be self-sustaining and no NATO base.
At Barracuda 8481 wrote,
The safest place would be the USA, as they are 40 to 50 years ahead of any country in warfare technology. Not to mention air defense systems, which are more likely done by satellite lasers, which would knock out every country's nukes before they could even be launched. The USA would know exactly where every country's nukes are stored and would be monitoring them 24 hours a day by surveillance, and know the process that has to be done to launch one. So the USA, in my opinion, would be the safest place to be.
As Zoro Anonimo wrote,
Trump pushed the world toward WW3 by attacking allies, poking foes, and arrogantly isolating the USA by breaking EVERY single alliances. As it goes, Trump will be WW3's Hitler 2 Poen T0, like the USA vs EU and BRICS. US, he vs EU and BRICS. Although
Paul Taylor M7D wrote,
It's one of these clips to set up the coming TikTok trick question funnies from the guy who suddenly puts a naive student in a challenging, difficult position to be caught out by believing someone has landed on the sun, haha.
Coded Pritaprit wrote,
I will be in my small hometown in Turkey where no one knows. What exactly does the tech developments give us, other than a smartphone? I really don't care about the world or the leaders who are just populist puppets. Or living in a trendy city. Those days are gone. My family, my peace of mind is the most important thing. Anyone come close to my house, I will kick their and die with my honor.
At Mr. Symbolic 7 wrote,
Nah, I have a better plan. Phase 1 Ukraine 2. Moscow 3. Germany 4. Tuyen 5. Iran 6. Israel 7. And Korea, safe as a bug in a rug.
At AKG_table wrote,
Yes, the best place to be in the event of WII are islands in between two likely warring nations with few people of consequence and no real military. Brilliant channel.
At MJZone wrote,
1141 yet. The Alps don't defend themselves alone. The only army the Alps actually stops are the ones you are willing to kill there. It's a great killing zone if you have an alpine spirit, but someone still has to do the killing. Otherwise, it's open.
Achille Graysky wrote,
You're thinking in terms of WWI weapons. Little islands and vast bodies of water constitute a liability to survivors and an arsenal for world powers in the terms of modern warfare. Earthquakes, tornadoes, and tsunamis can be induced.
At Linda Jenkins Y3F wrote,
For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Romans 10:13. Amen. The Master's Voice Prophecy Blog 2026 Warning, Warning, Love, and Trust Jesus.
At Mike Gravel 5310 wrote,
In a case of a nuclear war, almost all fish going to die with radiation in the water stop. Thinking you are safe, the only thing who's going to survive is bugs.
At Mr. Bronzy 4875 wrote,
Great video, but I hate how it paints the U.S. as the good guys and everyone else that's not ally the bad guys. Especially with the recent activities and what's happening in the Middle East, Palestine, Israel, Greenland, etc. I'm not sure anymore.
At Diana Boyd 7876 wrote,
That Cape Town, South Africa would even rate a mention is beyond ludicrous if survival is the goal. Demographics. For heaven's sake. Also hugely significant is that in a global nuclear war, most of the radiation would be expended in the northern hemisphere, and the Coriolis effect keeps that bad air in the northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere would have much lower levels of radiation. Chile doesn't have a lot of arable land, while Argentina, on the other hand, has plenty. Mendoza, Argentina is at the southern latitude that corresponds to San Diego, California in the north, and is at the base of the Andes, so snow melt provides plenty of water in rivers and streams, and it sits on top of an aquifer. Famous wine region, farm acreage for miles, famous for beef. Easy to get a residence visa Farmland can be purchased for hundreds of dollars per acre. Salta, Argentina, and Cafayate, Argentina, also nice areas.
As Sneaky Lemon 8513 wrote.
Lol, as a South African, I'm feeling pretty proud. At the moment, our power situation is doing pretty good, and also, our crime isn't as bad as people make it out to be. Like, it's not great, but I mean, I've lived here most of my life, and I've never been a victim of any violent crime. Only petty theft, which is more just inconvenient and financially stressful. But it's not, like, dangerous. I mean, obviously, it depends where you are, and some places are safer than others. But it's not like if you come here, you'll definitely be held up at gunpoint or something. I've never even seen a real gun before except my boyfriend's dad's heirloom revolver. I don't know. I'd feel pretty good staying put right here in WW3.
At Andy Simmons 2423 wrote.
The safest place to be in a war is right next to the globalists that create the circumstances necessary for war to be waged. You never see world leaders or CEOs on the front lines, do you? They almost always magically end up flourishing during wartime. It's almost like they cut deals with the central bank, weapons manufacturers, arms dealers, big energy, big pharma, etc., and then call those deals campaign contributions or charitable donations to foundations in their name. I'm going to go hang out near the French Laundry if WE kicks off. There wouldn't be a bomb dropped within 200 miles of that place. The rich and powerful love that restaurant.
At Weirdba Games wrote.
It's all safe and fun until the fishes starts to mutate due to nuclear wastes and starts to spend their skill points on various fangs or shoot venoms.
At Tony Duncan 9852 wrote.
I've picked the right place to be and sawed the lot of the stupids that starred WW3. I've already got my sticks and stones ready. Watch threads if you can.
As Stephen Bembridge 9118 wrote.
There would be no place on Earth safe. And if all the countries that have nuke fired, just one per country. The fallout take 10 days to circumnavigate the world, so no country island. You would have underground or underwater be living on Mars, living on Moon. So there ain't too many places on Earth, if any, safe.
At your dude 8201 wrote.
The US and its allies? What allies? The next big war isn't NATO against Russia and China. It will be an all-out, lonely, isolated US against the Eurasian Treaty, speaking Europe, Russia, China, and India as one big group. If you Americans don't want this to happen, get rid of MAGA.
2 or 7 GJ wrote.
Greenland might be the safest place in entire world? No way even possible that after some well-known mister from America announced to make Greenland great again.
At Vornamenic name 1069 wrote.
Surviving in the Icelandic wilds? Really? Come on. There are almost no forests that would give you shelter or anything to build shelter with or use as firewood. The country is quite cold and wet, and there are huge glaciers and deserts there as well. The coastline is windy as well, and other than fish, there is not much to eat. And how do you fish without a boat? How do you build a boat without trees? What about medical plants in cases of infections or wounds? And given you do not live in the wild but in a town, what about the influx of refugees into Iceland and the consequences of that? Not enough housing, prices increase, shortages?
At Ms. Casual Vlogger wrote.
I think you misjudged how the scenario would go. You would have Russia with the US, as the US is a satellite state of Russia's now, versus the rest of the world.
At Eleanor Lapointe 4241 wrote.
H. So is that why Donald Trump wants Greenland? If he was working with Putin and gets Greenland, then the gap wouldn't be an issue for Putin. Could it be that Russia is the one that wants Greenland?
At Robe 2504 wrote,
The U.S. doesn't have any allies except Russia, North Korea, and Israel, but that is only for voting. Trump thinks Putin likes him, but Putin treats Trump as a squire.
At Lucid Dreamer 013 wrote,
In the front lines because I am crazy. As for you all, Australia has no reason to be hit. South America has no nukes either, nor should be a target at all.
At Mariliza Vandermeer 8343 wrote,
Coming from a war-torn country because of the global elite and military trained lightly, I haven't heard a more garbage reasoning and an uninformed narrator than this one. I think I will give this video halfway in a thumbs down. First do your homework, sir, before releasing such garbage. Who pays you to say this nonsense? It's very easy to distinguish the safest places, certainly not these places you mention. They will be in the midst of the combat. Bless your soul. Nothing against you personally, just wondering who pays you to turn safety 180 degrees around. I will not read the comments. I might have sleepless nights how stupid humanity became. Bless you. Best wishes.
At Kurt Lee 6228 wrote,
I'm American, but I also have a Jamaican passport. When WE breaks out, I'll simply head out to Jamaica to live out the storm. We're so small that no one cares about Jamaica, and we're not on anyone's radar. While the US, Europe, China, and their allies are busy bombing themselves back to the Stone Age, I'll be frolicking on the beach grilling fresh fish and lobsters. At least that's the plan.
At Idane 1 wrote,
China threatening Taiwan? You are aware that they have already invaded most of their neighbors and are actively shooting at them? Yes, with water cannons and axes or stones when it comes to the mainland occupied areas in Tibet. Also, it seems Trump's showing just how badly outgunned they are. We just had a de-escalation. If China is not invading Taiwan in the next 3 years, that is most likely the reason.
At Fat 420 Tokes wrote,
This video really helps to illustrate how close on the west side we are to each other, lol, IDKY, but if you're American, then you usually always see maps with the US to the left and the rest of the continents to the right on the page. The globe-type perspective shows really just why Pearl Harbor, Hawaii being the middle point in the ocean between it all. I know that's obvious and sounds stupid probably, but I've never seen it like this where Hawaii is smack dab in the middle, lol.
At 12345667 Merbob wrote,
The problem with World War III is massive nuclear warheads. They would wipe out civilization. Imagine bombs being dropped everywhere that would not only annihilate everything within 100 miles, but would render everywhere they are dropped as a Chernobyl, meaning uninhabitable for the next 40,000 years. The most remote places where civilization could survive would be bombed back to the 7th century.
At Jackie Hubler 7168 wrote,
Who would want to survive it? I don't think I want to live in America with the enemies within. I could care less about a world war. Probably be the best thing for the planet to be rid of humanity.
At Hazaji wrote,
Funny how you presented the US here as the good guys when in reality they are the bad guys. China would be an ally and the US would be our enemy here in Europe.
At Busolagulagunju 3410 wrote,
If US wins, we would have no problem? Are you joking? With a fascism voting populace and a reincarnation of King Leopold of Belgium in charge? Unless you're a Snow White far-right Republican, you would have plenty to worry about in a US-dominated world.
Ask the Venezuelans.
At Viper's Whip wrote,
Ha, you think World War III that US will have allies? More likely everyone against the US, Russia being neutral, and a few rogue states supporting the US.
At Galen Evandison wrote,
I've been watching The Hub, a Canadian conservative podcast, and the host of it is waving the white flag. He's upset that PM Carney is even going to China because, as he says, we now live in a world of spheres, and we are under the US's sphere. According to the host and some of his guests, it's been decided, and there's no point resisting.
At Werewolf Lover 8636 wrote,
Why would you want to live? Life as you know, it would never be the same again. Your family and friends all dying or dead. No fresh water, no food, now power. Life after a nuclear war isn't going to be like the game Fallout. It's going to be misery, starvation, and death from the most simple of things antibiotics could treat. This will not be a world anyone would want to live.
At Rosit Saslavova 4193 wrote,
We cannot move to the proposed locations even when there is no war. Just imagine when millions will rush there in panic. We should not forget about the Russian Poseidon, which is capable of sinking any island and destroying coastal areas tens of kilometers from the coast with its powerful tsunami. Every island in the US orbit is a target. There is no salvation on Earth. The Moon and Mars are waiting for you. I stand up for peace.
Theo U7X4K wrote,
It was never a 3-day military operation that is a Western propaganda lie. The goals of the special military operation are not secret and openly stated by Russia, and they are on schedule to reach those goals. So there is no need to repeat the Western propaganda lie about the 3 days.
Amika C4V wrote,
Islands got conquered front, right, and center during both World War I and II. All you need is 1 or 2 ships from a large power to land, and you are doomed. I would rather go full Switzerland and dig yourself in, armed to the teeth to keep the entry price high. We know from history that this strategy worked even in the middle of Europe during both World War I and II. No weapons, no chance, it's as simple as that. Also, it needs to be a high-trust society. There is no point to flee a war just to get killed by the drug lord of the local favela. Yeah, it is fun to play imaginary Age of Empires, but there is little grounds in reality.
At Panther Praetorian 3974 wrote,
Where you want to be during a global thermonuclear war is only at ground zero in any city likely to be targeted. The very last thing you ever want to do is to survive temporarily a nuclear war. Every excruciating second of the rest of your very short life will be pain, suffering, and trying to figure what you can eat without increasing the radiation poisoning you've already absorbed. And those are the good days. Much of your time will be spent looking for uncontaminated medical supplies to bandage the many lesions you'll be rapidly developing in random places, from head to toes. You'll spend a lot of time giving care and attention to medical issues that only worsen continuously. If you find a place with minimal contamination, well, congratulations. You may slightly extend the time you can spend dressing your ever-increasing wounds. While you forage for food, you probably don't have a Geiger counter to test. Put this guy's advice aside and just find your way to the center of any main target you can reach inside of 54 minutes. 1/3 to half that anywhere in Europe, Asia, Africa. Even if you find a place far from anything that got hit, You'll just be waiting weeks to months for multiple jet streams and weather patterns to bring you the radioactive contamination you missed out on. Everything you heard in this video is bunk, and even a limited exchange can be potentially lethal globally over time. The weather will bring you radioactive ash. The only question is, how much? The only solution to all of this is convince world leaders not be that stupid. Failure is not an option.
At SKCCP wrote,
encourage governments of the free world to preemptively destroy refineries, power plants, water treatment facilities, grain storage facilities, naval bases and harbors of PRC. Once their strategic facilities are destroyed, we can systematically and methodically destroy PRC.
At PYP001 wrote,
as long as you're in a place that the US and Israel will not bomb, you are safe. Ask all the Syrians, Palestinians, Yemenis, and now Venezuelans. Watch out for the US's nuclear testing in the Pacific. They could do it again. The fish were contaminated and the Marshallese got radioactive poisoning in the 1950s. As for survival, the US might not be the most optimal in terms of quality and prices of food.
Tnek wrote,
chances of dying a violent death have been going down for 1,000 years. The invention of the gun did not put a kink in the descending line. WW3 put a little bump in it.
At USACIANED_proxy death squad ops wrote,
ignorant nonsense as ever. Nuclear winter is a myth. It would only take 2 to 3 days of weather to wipe most of the nuclear cloud kicked up from an all-out nuclear exchange. Meanwhile, people in China have the means to shrug such a nuclear exchange off in a few weeks. No problem in USA. Europe not likely, they'll all die off sooner than later.
At AlexJust3407 wrote,
in a scenario of WW3, the nukes will fly. I personally am too old to deal with. The fallout plus the cursed will deal with it. The blessed will perish in it. Basically, there will be no hiding.
FamS6U wrote,
there is no where safe. If make through initial seconds, not gonna make through week. If make through week months even, not going to W the yours of NO sun rays, dark and freezing cold. And even if half alive through the no sun rays dark, the ozone is obliterated and thus no protection against sun rays, we'd all fry. Well, what's remaining of us? Perhaps by then we'd all wish and pray we were dead.
At Daft Insights wrote,
you're ignorant if you think these places are safe. If they are so safe, then every other country will invade to keep their survivors safe. More war will pursue. I'm from New Zealand. Consider it a sanctuary country. Would you not want sanctuary for your people? Would you not wipe out any New Zealanders that resisted the only safe place left on Earth?
Thomas S5D3U wrote,
I'd want to be near Donald Trump because everyone knows that he is such a coward that he'll be hiding in the safest place possible, whether on or off Earth.
As Steve1750 wrote,
I think Fiji would be a strategic hotspot, and for the rest of this video. If you don't eat glow-in-the-dark fish or sheep, you're pretty well stuffed wherever you go, not to mention how would you get there without getting shot down. Britain and Iceland fired shells at each other over fishing, writes the Cod War, so do your research. Greenland, your biggest threat would be Trump, but you could always go catch a polar bear to make a warm coat, I suppose. While you're digging holes through the ice to fish, you would build up a sweat to stay warm.
At Jerimer6533 wrote,
how do you figure our relationships are not well with other countries? So far, it looks like they're actually starting to pay the money they owe and they're starting to fight their own wars instead of having us do the fighting for them, not unless you want a person like Biden back in office that will just give them everything.
At Michael Vaughn 1496 wrote,
Gin ook salmon.
I'm surprised you didn't go the full Monty and say Chin Uk Salman. It's Shin Uk, not Chin Uk, idiots. And don't argue with me. I'm a 6th-generation Coast native, and I think I can say with no doubt how the people in the language group's names are pronounced. Honest to God, take 3 minutes to Google a few words and don't assume you know the answer. Clearly you don't. Your screw-ups show me that have no respect for people different from you, you buffoon. I remember again why I don't subscribe to your garbage.
Chris Shelswell wrote,
I think I'd have taken the USA out of NATO for this video. They're doing a pretty stellar job at alienating their allies. And you might have been a bit fast off the mark with Greenland. I'm not sure I'd want to be there right now.
At 477 Bravo Juliet wrote,
Let's just get it over with. Humans are nothing but cockroaches destroying this planet as fast as they can. Maybe we'll all die and this planet can survive.
Stellar Fox wrote,
All okay, but if WW3 goes and reaches my country, I prefer to die on the first ride. What will be the point on living without internet? Especially considering I work on programming computers, so if they are done, truly will prefer to go rather than have to do other stuff, especially as I am 55 years old. If I were 20, maybe different story.
At Carl Gross 4382 wrote,
There is no means for humans to survive a massive global thermal-nuclear war if the blast and the radiation do not get you. Those who survived those hurdles would be faced with trying to survive a nuclear winter for years. The only organisms that will be left are the ones in our deepest oceans and life that lives deep underground. Some plant and fungal spores will perhaps survive. Most of life, even if survived the blast and radiation, will freeze and starve from a nuclear winter. In a nuclear winter, the ocean surface would experience significant freezing and widespread sea ice expansion, particularly in the northern hemisphere, extending far beyond current ice limits into normally ice-free areas like the South China Sea, due to smoke blocking sunlight and causing rapid, severe global cooling. This dramatic cooling would lead to thick sea ice growth, altering ocean currents, impacting marine life, and creating a nuclear little ice age with long-lasting effects. Yes, life forms existed in such ice age conditions that took 10 of thousands of years to adapt to, not several months.
At Makoto 5071 wrote,
I'm 60 plus. I'd rather be vaporized from a nuke than trying to survive and starving. Plus, if zombies start to exist, I don't want to be eaten by a zombie or always running from them. If zombies do come into existence, China is most likely where they will originate.
At Emilpetka 3105 wrote,
Frankly, I think that only Americans can be so stupid to use a bomb, and this video proves it again, as the history, by the way, too. And by the way, Groenland is not a country, and there is no such term as Greenlanders. I still wonder why YouTube algo find this shit suitable to me.
At Christina Hunt 5153 wrote,
If you is only one person, you can move lots of places. But you will likely be lots of people, so any place you move to in a crisis will likely become hell very soon.
Peters Davos wrote,
Obviously, the difficulty for most people getting to any of these safer, remote places is transportation. I can see the whole South Pacific region being a DMZ for the billionaire class. The wealthy will spend their time at sea while dropping into island havens for fuel and supplies. The uber wealthy will see WW3 as an inconvenience. 99% of the population will be stuck where they are by luck of wherever they are living when the missiles start flying. And your assessment of Greenland is pretty off the mark. As it turns out, and the US of A is increasingly becoming the enemy behind the line.
At Terracan 7181 wrote,
Fiji constantly needs food and medical aid from Australia every couple of months, as well as has political unrest regularly with riots, with Australia sending in troops and police regularly.
Tinny Overlord wrote,
Honestly, the fact that a bunch of crazy, power-hungry, billionaire old men have all the say on OURSAFTY and our lives, as well as all life on this planet. It is terrifying. Since we got a dumb ass who wants to be a dictator in office in our country. None of us people living in this world want this war-driven shit. We just want to live our damn lives. While they stay in their bunkers, we all fry. Screw them. I hate humanity so damn much.
And Marco E9X9N wrote,
My first instincts were West Coast Africanigeria through Namibia or Argentina, but Chile sounds nice too. Relatively neutral territory, politically speaking, and the ocean is controlled by a single power China, and Russia would have to break through many lines to get there. Unless, of course, the war ends up being US versus Europe, then all bets are off in terms of who gets drawn in.
At Bendels Enterprises Inc. wrote,
Costa Rica, it's believed to be probably one of the few countries. It can be 100% self-sufficient. They produce everything they eat, electricity, a huge forest. They can live without cars, oil, or anything man-made.
Chris KSAN wrote,
If a nuclear WII would break out, all of those places would only delay dying. Also, as far as Africa is concerned, while ex-colony countries are making more and more pushes to distance themselves for their ex-conquerors, Russia and China have taken steps to get their footprints into African countries, particularly naive ones having gladly sold strategically important land to China, on which there are airports, harbors, roads, etc., so mind where you go.
A Grey Jedi Knight wrote,
I like how this video assumes we are looking for a vacation getaway. Lamau. The war hasn't even started yet, and my groceries are over $300 a month.
At We're in Wibby, KO801 wrote,
You clearly have not studied NZ history re military capabilities in Europe, Vietnam, Korea, etc. Further, they're the Australian, New Zealand Army Corps known as the Anzacs. That says it all.
At Drex3527 wrote,
I stopped watching when you started to talk about Russia's wool to expand to the far west. I have had enough of this extreme far left bullshit main shit media narrative.
A Ken1936 wrote,
Stay at home. The world is not going to end. This is all hype to divert your attention from other things. In the end, we cannot change what is in the future. Best just to live your best life and shut out all this pointless noise.
At RaffleRaffa9529 wrote,
Of course, they want a third world war. America does not want BRICS to succeed because they controlled almost everything after World War II, so they will not give up that power easily. You guys think the whole Ukraine thing is a coincidence? Ha ha ha, they pushed Russia into a war and they get to play the victim.
At Nilcarborundum 7001 wrote,
Do you really think the US would still have any allies when it comes to this point? They're doing their best to get rid of all the allies they had, so I think they could well be on their own.
At Dark Lord Faust 666 wrote,
Ortlia is probably our best bet. You have to remember global temps going to do a -40, -20 sitting after the nuclear winter, meaning Australia is about the only place that it's going to be frozen the entire year.
At Lee U4L8B wrote,
Sorry to say, but the USA's under Trump allies are shrinking by the day. If WW3 happens, America may be standing alone. America is getting weaker, and countries are turning against America on the daily. Please stop saying American allies'll, as they're becoming scarce. Thank you.
A welfare bum wrote.
So, in a nutshell, the safest place to be is somewhere with good fishing. This analysis is very poor. What about clouds of fallout being pushed by the jet stream? What about nuclear winter and the collapse of agriculture? And as we learned in WW2, islands are often critical for outposts and national defense and can be a focus of occupation and battles. In my view, the best location would be somewhere that, 1, is in the southern hemisphere, away from nuclear contamination in the northern half of the planet. 2, is not a target, out of the way, not between two warring nations. 3, has a large landmass that allows you to disappear into rural regions and be left alone. Also, a larger landmass means more agriculture, more trade, more diversity of commodities. 4, doesn't have an ethnic population that is going to instantly turn on the white guy during war. A country with a relatively peaceful culture. 5, doesn't have strategic assets, military bases, nuke power plants, etc. 6, has a relatively mild climate that is comfortable year-round with ongoing energy shortages. My top choices would be in South America. Uruguay and Argentina are the first that come to mind.
At Andrewbats 7678 wrote.
Good luck getting a hold or the rare earths to manufacture EV batteries if the war drags on. Iceland would eventually have to go back to horse-pulled transportation.
At Miranina 1585 wrote.
One thing that still amazed me is that Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek, predicted in 1987 WW3 to start in 2026, following mass homelessness in major city hub and civil unrest, and he would either be spot on or off by about a year. The Memory Alpha article on WW3 is chilling because reality is simply aligning on sci-fi.
At Godic Dunkelheit 2802 wrote.
I am glad that it is only the West that decided that WW3 is actually happening. Anyway, the Russian Federation would be the safest place, as the endless number of nuclear missiles, drones, and the most modern war technology would go out from Russia with love to the ED-zeroths of NATO. So Russia is the place to be.
A Patrick Chizek wrote.
1717. It is worth mentioning that as the ice begins to melt, there will be tons of valuable trade/supply routes in Greenland, which may make it a target. That's why the U.S. keeps attempting to purchase it from Denmark.
A Galvanized _iron wrote.
Looking for hope, survival during a conventional world war followed by the inevitable nuclear war, look no further than the open-air graveyard. Every country and its leadership will undoubtedly be underground, but that shouldn't stop anyone from wanting to try digging the cowards out. After all, it's a war of survival. Fem.
At Make Things Travel Tell Stories wrote.
The U.S., as it currently stands, is more likely to be the aggressor than China. China is often accused of banging the drum when they undergo naval exercises that nobody bats an eye about if other countries did the same. The U.S., from a diplomacy perspective, is the middle-class high school bully that accuses others of bullying to draw attention away from their protection racket. And I'm ashamed of my country, Australia, for being stupid enough to militarily ally with the U.S. when our major trading partner is China. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Australia is the lickspittle who hangs about the U.S. bully, saying yeah, all the while trading with China.
At Alan Huggins 8149 wrote.
Russia's population, unlike that of the rest of the world, is not near the coast, so melting the ice and raising water 50 feet plus would be an easy target to affect global change.
A Kurt Cobain Pizza 5606 wrote.
I see the US step back and let the rest of NATO handle everything, especially the funding and defenses. We'll sit this one out, and you can show us how things get done.
A Diesel Gypsy 1100 wrote,
You lost me at Russia wanting to take all of Europe. This is just American bullshit. There is only one country pushing for WW3, and that is the USA. The European countries seem to want WW3 as well, but their people don't support them, and those governments are likely to collapse very soon. Everyone else just wants to get along and do business together. Western civilization is heading for a collapse entirely of its own making, and when that happens, good riddance.